Going live. Welcome. We are live, and this is Scott Thomas, and I am so delighted to be sharing our first webinar that Olivier, my beloved partner, are doing with Kamala Devi. And I want to start by doing a brief introduction of Kamala Devi. I've been very blessed in my life to travel the world and meet amazing people. For 20 years, I produced a lot of television shows and documentaries, and the nature of the work that I did was to meet powerful and incredible people all over the world who are making a difference. And I want to say that Kamala Devi is as smart and as balanced a woman as I know. She is a mother of an amazing 7-year-old son, a devoted wife of 12 years, and has a great husband. I've been blessed to get to know their family. She has a very extended family, which she probably will talk about. She's also an activist. She's a writer. She is a coach and a teacher. And what I love most about Kamala Devi is her willingness to share totally honestly about what she's learned in life, sometimes the hard way, to share her personal challenges in a very honest way because she has such a devotion to raising consciousness and helping others. So with that as an introduction, I am honored to say hello to our dear friend Kamala Devi.
Thank you. Oh, that's so beautiful. I'm thrilled to be here, and of the many things I'm grateful for, technology is one of them. Webinars, I'm thrilled, Scott, that you've taken to webinars because I really believe in the work that you're doing, and I'd love to see you getting out there. I know that you're, like a lot of us, traveling a lot, but we can only, we can only travel so far. And today, actually, I just figured out was my third webinar of the day.
Wow.
Yeah. and in all honesty, this one is the most personal. Just between you, me, and Olivier, getting to like share from our hearts. My highest intention is to bring a little bit of paradise to whoever we've magnetized at this hour to be in this experience. Like I wanna tap into that frequency of paradise together.
Yeah, and it's appropriate that she's talking about paradise because Kamala Devi and I are going to be leading a retreat truly in paradise next week, starting on Friday, May the 23rd. We're leading a magical Maui retreat over Memorial Day weekend. And so some of the people who are going to be coming on board to our webinar today are people who are participating in that retreat. And but we thought it would be kind of fun to also just open up a webinar and do some coaching for some of the people who are with us. And we also want to mention that if any of you are interested in participating, we had promised that the first few people to come on board can actually ask questions live. And if you'd like to do that, I just need for you to give me a Gmail address, and I can then invite you to actually, you'll be seen on screen the way that you're seeing Kamala Devi and the way that you are seeing a photograph of Olivier. Olivier is our behind-the-scenes tech guru who might show his live face at some point today. But anyway, if any of you want to participate, and welcome Lido from Honolulu and Kalidas and many others, I'm really excited that my friend John San Juan, all the way from South Africa, has just tuned in. Mia, wonderful friend that I met at ISTA last weekend, is with us. So if any of you would like to be able to ask questions live, in the chat box, please give me your Gmail address. I will then send you an invitation. You'll need to check your Gmail box and check, Gmail has different boxes. Check the box, the mailbox, that's social, that's marked social emails. So if any of you want to do that, we're checking and looking at the chat box, and I'll kind of cover that. And while I'm covering that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kamala Devi to share a little bit of insights and talk about our structure for the evening.
Excellent. So what we want to do in this time together, we know how busy and how Sorry, just noticed I'm not plugged in. Here we are.
Although we're hearing you well.
Okay, good. So I know that everybody's really busy, and I want to create a little bubble, like a little ritual, during which time we have transpersonal healing, shifting awareness, and that doesn't take much, because I think the consciousness of the people that are attracted to this work already get that as we heal each other, we heal ourselves. And so one of the things that we'll be doing is laser coaching, and we'll take a few people who have the clarity and the willingness to dive deep and quickly. I call it laser because I want to go deep and fast within like 10-20 minutes. And as we support those people getting a lightning bolt or an upgrade, then that experience is like healing for the collective. As we witness our friends and lovers like share their questions, it's like they're asking the questions on behalf of whoever tuned in today. So it's basically tribal technology applied to, online technology. The specific request is for you to put in a sentence, what is the greatest relationship challenge? Since Scott and I are both relationship and love, experts, teachers, coaches, we want to know what's the greatest challenge that you're experiencing, and as you formulate that and a willingness for us to help you look at it in a different way, we'll address that. And we feel like we could probably get 4 to 6 people that we can work with during this call. Can you hear me?
You froze for a moment.
Great. So halfway through the session, we're gonna take a little break, and we're gonna paint a picture or a postcard and give you an invitation to join us in Maui. But then, if you stay all the way to the end of our session, we want to give you a homework assignment or a technique, because I really feel that you'll have a powerful takeaway that you can actually apply in your life as a result of staying the entire time with us. And for clarity, it's just past the 6 o'clock hour. Scott, we're going until, is it a 90-minute webinar?
Yep, 90 minutes. So we've got till 7:30 Pacific time, and we've got over 30 people. I just took a look at our attendees list. We've got over 30 people from several different states and even several different countries.
Yay! And in that time, I hope that you make this the most valuable thing to be doing. I know with online, it's easy to get distracted with social media or something else, and I really want to take a few breaths and a moment to really center ourselves and tune in as if we were in a room with 30 friends and lovers who are willing to synergize and create a shift in love and consciousness just during this next hour and a half.
And I want to say for a moment, one of the amazing things about Kamala Devi, when she says, like we would with our friends and lovers, she really knows how to do that. I was just with her in San Diego, where she was the featured keynote speaker at the ISTA conference, International School of Temple Arts, and then was fortunate to be at her birthday party. And seeing how she has so many people that she's truly intimate with who love and adore her, and that the way that she honors everyone in her world, it's very inspiring how you do that. And perhaps you want to even give us a few tips and tools and practices for how to do that. Well, the Devi, when she says, like we would with our friends and lovers, she really knows how to do that. I was just with her in San Diego. Teresa, you need to mute your mic if you can, Teresa. You are with us, but mute your mic, please. And Jane, I'm going to add you and send you an invitation. We are getting people asking to come on into the chat room. So as we just learned, when you do come into live, when you're coming in live, we will be able to see you, and we'll also be able to hear you. So it's important for you to mute, and you'll see when you come into our world, our little webinar world here, you'll see that if you go down to your own box, you'll see yourself. You can mute your own microphone. And please keep your microphone muted until we call on you. And welcome to the live room, Teresa. And I see that we're now up to over 40 people.
Great.
Jane, I just sent you an invitation, and Lido, I will be sending you an invitation in a moment as well.
Sweet. So what occurs to me to share first, and again, I want everyone thinking, and maybe go into the chat box too, and actually post what is the greatest challenge that you are having in love and relationship right now. So that's the question that's on the floor. That's the question we're going to dive into. But I'm going to share some general speculations. We're at a really amazing time in history when, because the standard relationship container, which is this monogamous marriage paradigm, is starting to it's starting to prove that it's not for everybody, and that there's alternative paradigms like polyamory, open relationships, swinging, that are emerging. We're finding more and more conscious people that are waking up and designing relationships in whatever way empowers them most. And what Scott and I are really touched by is how people are creating relationships with community itself. So whether you're poly or mono, the choice to make your community like a beloved can really upgrade an abundant source for many of your relationship needs. And so one of the things that I'd like to kind of gift you by the end of this teleseminar this webinar is some ways to get closer to your community so that you have that intimacy, even if it's distributed, with the many. So experiencing kind of the singular through the plural. That's one of my kind of fascinations right now, and that's a goal of mine on this webinar. So where do we want to start, Scott, in terms of how to decide who to work with first?
Well, Teresa was the first person to come in, and so Teresa, if you've got a question for us, I invite you to unmute your microphone and let us know if you have a question. Although it looks like she just, I saw her live up until a moment ago, and it looks like she might have left her box. So while we're waiting for other people to enter the live room, I will ask if anybody wants
I'm
to.
here, Scott.
Okay, good. Teresa, do you have a question you'd like to ask?
I'm having a little bit of technical slowdown.
Okay.
But so I think it might be better if you want to defer to the next person.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask Kamala Devi a question then while we wait for more people to come into the room. And also remember, you can ask questions by the chat box.
Great.
Kamala Devi, I'm very touched, and of course we're going to be really working on how to bond with community. Mm-hmm. And so I'd like to ask you, you have many lovers, you have an amazing husband, you've got a 3-year beautiful relationship with Roxanne, but I want to ask you about your eternal beloved lover. I want to ask you about your relationship to Source and how you cultivate and how your relationship to the eternal beloved, or whatever you might call that, how that fits into your overall life and scheme of relationship with others.
I'm so tickled because I don't often get to share how deeply devoted I am to, like, the unmanifest is the way I want to say it. So much of my fascination with source energy, it comes in form. So I absolutely have as many lovers as I do because I believe that source expresses herself through all of us, through each of us differently, and I, you know, I just see the divine emanation in each of my lovers, and that's just an ongoing practice. And yet, there is still beyond that a deep sense of a deep presence, you know, that I'm not able to articulate or I can't point to, but a deep presence that animates usually my creativity. Like I experience source energy most when I'm creating. And so specifically because I think there's a lot of people who don't consider themselves artists, but they are, I don't know, maybe good at gardening or house design, and for me, every time I'm creating, I feel like, oh, the creator is working through me. Like I get to serve. And as a writer, I often consider myself like God's secretary. It's like I just get to take dictation, and it's edgy and scary to say that sometimes because it sounds sort of audacious, like, oh, you're constantly talking to God. And it's also edgy for me because most of the men, besides you, Scott, most of the men in my deep, close inner circle happen to be atheists, including my 7-year-old son.
Wow.
Yeah, like we'll hold hands to pray, and I'll be like, Divine Spirit, I'm so grateful, and my son is like, I'm so grateful too, and I don't believe there's a God. And I'll be like, well, what are you grateful for? And we're just like really at peace with whether you believe in God or not, that, you know, gratitude and you know, being grateful, whether you call it the universe or spirit or source or the unmanifest, there's still a connection to the mystical essence that's beyond form. And even with my atheist lovers, we get in deep states of like awe and reverence. And whether that's in awe of science or in awe of humanity, it's any time I put my attention on that which is bigger, you know, than me and my knowingness, then I feel so aligned. Like it's like I'm then put in service. And I want to share that because it's my loving another person is actually like a practice of prayer. Like it's a worship. Like my relationships are forms of worship. It's like I get to adore the divine in this form, and I get to adore all of their divinity, including their humanity, including their, you know, I had a meltdown earlier today. Actually, I was having like this both anxiety and frustration fit, and then I had myself witnessed in it, and I just got to show up with like, wow, I'm really surrounded by people that get that this is source energy expressing itself in tantrum.
I always appreciate your honesty, and I feel inspired. In a moment, Krista Cobb has asked a good question, so we'll get to that in a moment. But there's something really cool that Deepak Chopra points out, and that is that about the most ancient, sacred, spiritual texts that have survived are the Vedic scriptures. They were written in Sanskrit about 5,000 years ago. And in the Vedic scriptures, God, which is called Brahman, is given 26 definitions. There are 26 definitions or principles of God as the Vedic scriptures describe it. Fast forward to today, when our most modern and sophisticated form of science is probably quantum physics. And in quantum physics, it's been discovered or determined that scientifically there's this unified field, and the unified field is everything and all that is, and it's totally connected, and it's just all the molecules and atoms changing form. And the unified field has been given 26 scientific principles. And the 26 principles of the unified field directly correlate with the 26 definitions of God written 5,000 years ago. And what I love about that is one of our oldest spiritual traditions and our most modern science actually come together to provide a perspective of how this all might be working. And that's just happened in our lifetime. And so I just think whether you're an atheist or a scientist or whether you're very spiritual, there's actually a way that it merges together. We don't have to polarize, but there's a way that we can kind of understand it in a unified way. And what you were saying, Kamala Devi, kind of inspired me to just share that little factoid.
Yeah, thank you. I'd be curious to see a source and read more. So that'd be a fun follow-up piece.
Krista Cobb asked a tender question, and that was about how to establish trust or rebuild trust when she's experienced betrayal. And I'm imagining betrayal from lovers. And so would you like to tackle that one, Kamala Devi?
Sure, I'll start. And this is one that's really dear to my heart right now. You know, I'm in one of my deep relationships, rebuilding trust. And my progress with it is in direct proportion to how much I trust myself. And so what I find is the people, and especially as a coach too, so this is my internal process, but as a coach, when I meet people and they don't trust anyone, it's basically they don't trust themselves and then they project it onto everyone outside of them. Now, I sincerely get in relationship, especially with the people we love most, we have the capacity to hurt the most, and when there's dishonesty or there's just absolute like, oops, I broke an agreement, that then we're in this place of not just like having to rebuild that, but you know, even when we say, hey, I trust myself a lot, that person made a breach of an agreement or they lied to me, it's so easy to say, this doesn't have to do with me. This is I don't know if I can trust that person to be their word. And what helps me, guides me a lot in that is to where I can practice forgiveness, which is where I can deeply accept, we all make mistakes, and accept that this person slipped consciously, unconsciously, willingly, you know, whether they were capable or not, they acted in a way that they personally, you know, want to change and work with. That what helps me is when I get that they actually need my help to not do that again. And so the trust breach, you know, I'd love to hear more specifics about what's going on in the relationship. I know I'm speaking in general, but the power is on me when I say, oh, let me help this person get back into integrity, let me help this person become trustworthy again, then I feel empowered. If I feel like, wow, I need to trust them and it's completely up to them, keep their agreements or not, then I'm at their whim and it's disempowered. So I like to say, hey, I'm a really trustworthy person. Let me help this person get back into integrity, and that's up to me to communicate, to over-communicate, to tell them how I need, you know, what I need from them in order to complete the forgiveness or to accept them more, to help them get back into good graces. So I think the takeaway is that it's a co-creation and that you're working with the person as opposed to testing them and trying to make them prove or defend themselves. So it's an alignment that you're working with instead of against.
Wow, beautiful, thank you. You know, learning to take responsibility for our experience of life is kind of a key to actually being happy. Both Kamala Devi and I make our living as coaches, and most people are hiring us and working with us as personal coaches who come into our classes, workshops, retreats, because they want to be happy. They want to enjoy life. They want to enjoy their relationships. And something that I just want to underscore that Kamala Devi is pointing to is ultimately we cannot control what other people do. We do have 100% control over our thoughts about it, our judgments, our projections, whatever's going on in our brain. We can control that at a certain point. We also have a certain control over where we put our attention. And it's very important when we've been hurt to acknowledge that the hurt is real, and to mourn, and to cry, and to get angry, and to allow our natural emotional response, but not to fall into playing victim. And falling into victim looks like when we keep running the story over and over and over about what somebody did to me, what somebody did to me. He did that to me. He betrayed me. Acknowledge the pain, acknowledge the hurt, acknowledge the unmet need for trust, safety, but then don't keep running the story. Because if we keep running the story, then we begin to believe that that's who we are in the world, that's what's always going to happen to us, and it becomes a pattern, and we want to change those patterns. And big ones like betrayal are very challenging because we as human beings are still living in bodies. You know, we might be spiritual beings, but we're in animal bodies, and these animal bodies are still programmed to remember pain and to protect ourselves from pain. And so learning how to really purge the pain but not keep running the story over and over is what I'd like to add about betrayal.
Yeah, that's good.
I want to move on. We might get back to that in a moment. To Krista's added a few more, but we're now beginning to get some really wonderful, wonderful questions. And so I want to give another opportunity. And Katrina says, "Hi, I'm having an open relationship, potentially poly, with my love, who is new for me, and it's beautiful. As we honor communication and honesty above all else, I do find it difficult to address my status with other interested men who don't comprehend that I can love one as well as others." And that's a good one for you to tackle, Kamala Devi. How is it? Are there some people that just really can only love one at a time and that's their integrity, and others that are kind of built to love multiple people, or is that an acquired ability? What is your response to that?
Sweet. I love this question, of obviously a favorite topic of mine, and want to dive in. Two administrative questions first, Scott, which is one, maybe as the sticky note you can say what's your greatest relationship challenge so people can post that. Two,
Okay.
I'm not seeing the picture switch at the bottom. I don't know if that's on voice command or not, and I was curious.
That's a question for Olivier.
Great.
I'll replace the sticky message. I am controlling what the camera records. You know, by the
Great.
way, everybody, we are recording this. Most of the time I'm on Kamala Devi. When I speak, I sometimes put it on myself. But once we hear from, say, John or Teresa or anybody else who comes in, I will put you on camera, unless if you don't want to be on camera, just keep your icon on like you do right now.
Yeah, it'd be fun to hear from South Africa next. Okay, so the question at hand is this, are some people naturally poly versus, oriented more towards mono? And what's really fascinating for me is the distinction between identity and orientation, and even more so, like, the poly conversation is very analogous to being gay and lesbian. So a lot of people are like, I was just born gay, this is how I am, this is who I'm oriented towards. And I know a lot of poly people that are, flag waving and card carrying, and they feel like everybody's born that way naturally, and then we're all squeezed into the mono conditioning, and then there's, and so this is a really hot topic, and I'm not going to cover the whole span of the topic, in this little webinar, but what I want to empower people around is that, A, how you do relationships is up to you. And how important it is to stay true to yourself, and to the degree that you know who you are and what lights you up is the degree to which you're going to have satisfaction in your relationships. If you stay true to yourself, you're going to have more success and satisfaction. And if you waver because you think it's the more evolved thing to do it this way, or your parents said do it that way, then you're going to be uncomfortable or constantly going up, like bumping up against your own nature. Now, what's really powerful for me, because so often I've been seen as the poster child for polyamory, and people have their speculations about whether it's easy for me or not. You know, I happen to be one of the most jealous Latina women I've ever met, and I've chosen a lifestyle that's just brings up all my Latin-like programming. And what's important for me is not whether I'm poly or monogamous or polyfidelitous or swinger even, but the deeper piece is that I'm a lover. And I ask myself, how can I love and bring out the best in my lovers? And I adjust my relationship structure with each individual person to optimize the love, which is I need to feel safe and free. And in every relationship, I keep restructuring it from equal amounts of like safety and freedom. And for some people, doing that with one relationship is an entire life's practice, and that's plenty for them. And for some, like myself, I'm voracious and I just can't get enough, so I'm willing to do that ongoing work with all of my lovers to kind of course correct, dance, find that balance. But if you're finding yourself, you know, your bandwidth stretched, then just love as much as you can with as many people as you can stay in integrity with.
That's it really is true. I knowing Kamala Devi as I do, what's extraordinary is she really is a very emotionally honest Latina woman, and can really ride a roller coaster of emotions, and it's beautiful watching her willingness to be so real and so authentic. And not always trying to be the great poly queen who's got it all together, but to allow her, when jealousy arises, when fear arises, she's honest about it. And that's a very important model for us, because above and beyond everything, it works when we're authentic. And so her level of transparency and authenticity, I find, is very inspiring, and ultimately works because it lets everybody in her world know what's really going on. Because if we don't know what's going on, then the imagination takes over, and it might be more comfortable in the short run to suppress our feelings, but in the long run, it doesn't work out so well. And so, again, it's a beautiful quality you have, Kamala Devi.
Katrina's question, I can't find it in the thread, so I'm not sure. It seemed like it had an element about coming out, or how do I talk about it. Is that right?
Yeah. What I heard was, I found it right here. She says, I find it difficult to address my status with other interested men who don't comprehend that I can love one, and then in big bolds, and others.
Yeah.
And while you're thinking about that, there's another good question that's kind of could be related. How to find good poly partners that are not just looking for friends with benefits, but are also looking for, a deeper connection.
Good. So to complete with Katrina's, like, I think that when we are in open relationship, there's a burden that we carry because we're pioneers, and that burden is we have to also be educators. So when the default paradigm is monogamous, and you choose to step out of that, you now also are intentionally or not stepping into certain activism. And I know a lot of people who are like, I don't want to be an activist, I just want to love. And my kind of piece is that, hey, anytime we are ourselves, we're role modeling, new possibilities, authenticity. And if you're going to be having conversations, especially like, with potential prospects of people, partners, there's a piece about education. And if you can either see that piece as a burden, like, now I have to teach them all about poly, or you can see it as a like an exciting privilege. And recently, I have to share, I actually went on a date with a monogamous guy. It wasn't just a date, it was like an actual hookup, which was so out of character for me because Reed Mahalko has this thing about date your species. Like, I am clearly not monogamous, and he knows that, and we had this whole negotiation around, hey, we're going to connect and explore this, and we know that we have totally different relationship styles. Now, the teaching for me, because I haven't done this in a decade, like the teaching for me in this was, not just, I have to, he's fully in consent, which he was as an adult. He knew who he was relating with, but it was this thing of like, oh my gosh, all of these feelings came up, and my feelings don't care what his relationship style is or species is. And even if I express that this is what I want, there's still, the heart has its own wisdom. And I had so much compassion for the people that are in these mono-poly combined relationships, how challenging it is. And I think the moral of the story, because even as the great poly educator as I am, and I feel like, if anybody's gonna learn how to do it right, it'd be me. Me teaching it to them, any partner of mine. The real moral of it is that person has to be really informed, really in consent, and know that, if you're choosing to date someone who's not, mono, if they're mono and you're poly, or vice versa, that you're choosing a really steep hill, that you're swimming upstream together, and that it's a big challenge. And so as a general rule, not only Reed Mahalko, but most poly and open relation people say, just don't do it. Don't do it. It's taking on too much challenge when poly is already challenging amongst other poly people.
We're getting a lot of good questions now, and one that's perfect for Kamala Devi is from Patty, and Patty is wondering about scheduling. Patty in Marin is involved with a group of 4 different pairings, and everybody has different needs around timing, and she's curious how to manage scheduling.
Okay, cool. I love talking about scheduling, and I just wanted to check, Scott, because I see John and Teresa online with us. Mm-hmm. Do we want to either engage with them, or do we want to take them off the screen? I'm feeling...
I'd say that for both John and Teresa, when you're ask a question, just put it in the chat box. I want to ask a question, and then on our next opening, I'll open yourself up and just come on live. Click camera. Right now, they're controlling whether we see them or hear them. Okay. They've got the control of that.
Scheduling! Scheduling,
your specialty.
My quote around that polyamory is easy. Scheduling's a bitch. And really, love is infinite, but we only have 24 hours per day and 7 days per week. And when my primary love language is quality time. I sincerely build a relationship on spending quality time with people, so that the way I manage, a dozen lovers is with real regular dates. And I'm a huge advocate of, if you're just seeing someone and you spontaneously date them occasionally, that's great. But as soon as you start seeing 3 people, your system gets more complex, and the more complex a system is, the more order it needs. And it's laughable to me that somebody could have a highly complex romantic schedule, romantic life, without having some basic time management skills. big teaching I have around this is to not just schedule playtime, but to also schedule process time, to also schedule practice time where you're, practicing, whether it's prayer or yoga or work together, you're playing together, you're processing, all in proportion. Because what happens if you don't schedule processing time is you'll end up processing when you're supposed to be making love and or going to a movie, and it just becomes a real bummer. And so I just want to encourage, in addition to having a complex schedule, to ironically schedule maintenance for a relationship keeps the relationship running smoother, so you're not broke down in the shop all the time.
Boy, we're getting so many good questions now. We've got some really good ones to get to. And a big emphasis on scheduling, and I've got to throw in, when you're choosing partners, because inevitably there is going to need to be processing, choose people that are emotionally intelligent. Choose people who ideally either practice compassionate communication or some similar form of communication. Please choose people that are self-reflective, who are willing to really be honest. Like I was talking about before, Kamala Devi can say, hey, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling scared. Choose people that are willing to slow down and stop and pay attention to everyone's feelings and needs. When we are paying attention to each other's feelings and needs, and fears and thoughts, and processing it and being present to it, then we can really go deep. But if people are stuffing it, then, people who stuff, they stuff, and then Mount Saint, whomever, goes off. And that leads to a really good question from Rich. He says, how can someone be totally honest when my longtime partner can be very reactive? That's a good one for you, Kamala Devi.
Yeah.
How can someone be totally honest when my longtime partner can be so reactive?
Yeah.
And Lori, I will get to your question next, after we respond to Rich.
Yeah. So, in every relationship, there's a dual inquiry. And one curiosity is inward. It's like, how can I be fully honest? This is a deep inquiry for myself. Like, there is no spiritual path if it's not telling the truth, like really inquiring about authenticity, honesty, being who you are. If you're not who you are and you're not expressing yourself fully, then the person that you're in love with or that loves you is loving some illusion, delusion, projection of who they think you are. Okay? So the cornerstone of real love is this honesty piece. Now, the dual inquiry part is like this deep curiosity about who my partner is, how to bring out the best in them, how to make them feel safe to tell the truth or to not react. And when we edit our honesty in proportion to what we think our partners can handle because we're scared, we're often underestimating our partners, or we're letting our fear of their reactions set the pace of our spiritual evolution. Because our spiritual evolution of knowing who we are in relationship really depends on our ability to tell the truth. And if you're in partnership, deep, true partnership that's wanting to grow into, to grow together, then you work on that reactivity together. And to do that means, hey, let's look at how this reactivity is inhibiting my full expression, or that person's full expression is being inhibited, but let's work on how to create safety. And my favorite practice, and this is a practice that I think would be a good homework assignment for everyone in the call if you don't have this in your repertoire already, but is the withholds practice. Because no matter how reactive your partner is, they deserve to know the truth of who you are. Otherwise, they shouldn't be in a relation. Like, why be in a relationship with someone if you don't know who they are? So Scott and I can actually model this practice, this withholds practice, and it's a very simple script. So what I'm going to say to Scott is, there's something I've been withholding. Scott's going to say, would you like to tell me? I'll say yes, and then I'll say something to him, and then we'll change roles. And since Scott and I have a real relationship, we have the opportunity to be vulnerable right here online. Okay.
This was not planned, just so you all know. So my little heart is pounding.
Okay,
So I
cool.
just want to acknowledge that. So go away, Kamala Devi.
There's something I've been withholding.
Would you like to share that with me right now?
Yes, Scott. When I think about going to Maui with you and Emily and the community that we're magnetizing here, I'm a little nervous about being, this is so ironic, but like I really want to connect with you and Emily, but I'm a little nervous about being the third wheel because I'm used to having my entourage of, lovers and all my attention, and it's just going to be me, you, Emily, and then the other lovers that we magnetize, and I hope I don't get envious or feel left out.
Wow. This is very real for everybody who's watching. This is a very real moment.
Good. So what's cool is now Scott gets to receive that. He's not allowed to crosstalk. All he has to say is thank you, and then he has to reach even deeper and give me a real withhold having nothing to do with what I shared. Let's hear it.
Well, first of all, thank you. I really am taking that in, and it's very, very, very deep. And of course, I'm going to reflect on it. And of course, at some point, when you're ready or when we're ready, I'm going to respond.
Excellent. And the key to our listeners is that some point is 24 hours after the withholds. So the reason for that is, now
thank
he
you for
gets to
reminding me
meditate
of
on it,
that
I get to meditate on it, and nobody's answering out of reaction. And I can trust that 24 hours later we'll be in this, like, whew, okay, we can talk about it, and it's not so pressurized. Yay. Now Scott gets to say, there's something I've been withholding.
Let's see. Well, there is something I've been withholding, and I'm wondering, I just want to let you know that. Yeah, I would. I want to acknowledge that I have an insecurity because I'm older than anybody else pretty much in your tribe, and older, I think, other than Charles, than any of your lovers, that although I'm in a very focused relationship with Emily and have been pretty much in a focused relationship with Emily and with other women prior to meeting you, I've always had an insecurity that even though we're really, really close, that you're not sexually attracted to me because of my age or something, and that I periodically have an insecurity that comes up around that.
Thank you. Good. Scott, as vulnerable as this is, I feel the viewers are getting great value out of the role modeling, so we're going to do one more round, and then we'll take questions about it, okay? And by the way, just as a teaching point, when you're doing this with your beloved, I recommend you set a timer and you do this for no less than 20 minutes. So you keep going, withhold after withhold, even when you feel like, they know everything about me and I've said it all, you go even a layer deeper, okay? So, so it's okay to stretch and say, oh, what can I pull out of the air? There's something I've been withholding.
Would you like to share that with me right now?
Yes. So, Scott, I have like a regret or remorse about how little time, like I feel like if I wasn't so damn busy that we would probably co-teach more together or travel and play more, but just the feeling of like, I'm so busy. And so I feel a little bit out of integrity in terms of my desire to connect with you and then my capacity to connect with you. So I feel sorry about that and guilty about not managing my time better.
Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And kind of as a teaching point to our group that are watching, I have such a huge, overwhelming human response. I so want to address it. I so want to cross-talk it. I so want to react and respond and say something to you. But since I need to demonstrate the practice, but 24 or 36 hours from now, hopefully we'll get a chance.
Thank you.
Kamala Devi, I'm noticing that I have something inside of me that I've been withholding.
Would you like to tell me?
Yeah, I would. I am withholding how envious I am sometimes of the amount of response you get. And I also feel some guilt because I've got a great practice, I've got a great life, but you get more reactions, you get more Facebook posts. If I post something on Facebook, I might get 5 or 10 comments where you might get 30 or 50. And so I want to acknowledge that there's times I have envy about that. And then I feel guilty about my envy. So that's my withhold.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this practice with me.
Namaste.
Namaste. So, thank you. The little wrap up, because this is a homework assignment for our listeners, is stick to the script. Then, like, set a alarm clock. Stick to the script. As you find that you want to crosstalk, just breathe deeper. And it's okay to take your time to think about different things between speaking. And it's okay to go even beyond your comfort zone with this. The experience I get from all my clients who do it is afterwards an immense amount of lightness, like a spaciousness that they didn't expect. And the question that inspired it was, what about my partner's reactivity? Well, they're not allowed to react in this format, right? And now that the issues are on the table, you get to come back to it after 24 hours and sort through it in a safe, conscious way. And here's the kicker, is the more often you do this practice, the easier it gets, but the more intimacy you cultivate. So I highly recommend that whether you're in relationship or not, practice this with a coworker, with an associate, with a friend, so that you get more skilled at it.
I had promised Lori that to her question, and it's a tender one. She asks, I'm feeling very frustrated because my husband went on a vacation with a woman that I knew, but I gave him permission. Now he says that he loves her, but the new relationship energy is stress relationship, and I'm having a hard time because I feel left out. What should I do?
Well, I'm proud of you for being in touch with your feelings and voicing them here. And new relationship energy is super intoxicating and super scary, to watch other people in it. So I want to offer empathy for that tender place, and a deep reminder that new relationship energy is really temporary. That whether it's 3 weeks or 6 months, that it's as hot and exciting as it is, it actually is not comparable to the deep, unique bond that comes from knowing someone and loving them, and that a lot of the security that you're going to feel, or the balance that you're going to feel, is if you can continue to reinforce and emphasize all the special ways that your relationship is special for all kinds of reasons that aren't just hot chemistry. And so I just want to say, I find, oh, looks like we may have lost Scott. But I'll just continue until I hear otherwise. So my teaching around this is you and your partners can emphasize on what is the unique bond that you have, so that you can kind of allow them to have unique bonds with other people, and just also don't compare. Don't compare. Don't compare. Your relationship's going to look different with their relationship and with anyone else. And that's like really one of the deep rules in poly, is don't compare yourself to anyone else, and then delve into your specialness. So Olivier, I need a little bit of feedback. Since I lost Scott, I need a confirmation that I'm still live.
Hi, this is Scott.
Yeah, you're back.
Well, I am. My computer, for some reason, literally just crashed. I have no idea why. So you're still live. Everything is still happening, but I don't have as much control as I had before. I'm now. I came over to Olivier's room, so I'm talking to you from Olivier's room, so I can still keep an eye on what's happening, but I have a little less control since my computer crashed, so we don't think we can go back on.
No problem. So, should we check in with John?
Yeah. John, you'll have to turn yourself on because I can't control that right now. So if you want to connect in, just turn your camera on and turn on your microphone and we can hear from you. And while we're waiting, Katrina writes, my beloved and I have talked about when appropriate timing is to share a new external attraction, a potential external lover or a date. They're trying different timings and methods to share, so do you have any feedback about that, Kamala Devi?
Yes, 108 days on the full moon. Exactly. My point being that there are no external measures of what's appropriate or when. That right timing comes from a readiness and a co-creation between all parties involved in the relating. And this is a really hard measure, but it's really just the same as like someone saying, when's the right time to have sex for the first time? It's like, well, are you mature enough? Is your bond strong enough? Are you ready? There, you know, for some people that's on a first date. Like my husband of 12 years, we had, you know, I'm pretty sure, I think it was our second date we had sex. And for some people, it's like, hey, I really need to wait 6 months and I need to make, you know, work through my abandonment issues first or whatever it is. So it's very idiosyncratic, and it just is communicate, communicate, communicate. But the limiting step is to only go as fast as the slowest link. So I really encourage nobody pressure anyone or rush anyone, that you only open the relationship when you get a congruent hell yes from everyone involved.
Thank you for that. And we are getting people, you know, really expressing appreciation. Lori asks, or actually it's more of a comment, but I think it's worthy of stating, I appreciate you addressing the situation. I plan on emailing this woman, but it's just hard because they get stimulated mentally, whether you're mono or poly, and it's all a rush from that point, if that makes any sense.
What sense do you make of that, Scott? Help me out here.
So I think what I'm seeing is, I think it's a question about communication. So I guess I'll address that for a moment.
This is an adjunct to the prior piece, right? So she's communicating with the woman. Is this?
Oh, you know what I see happened? Krista, I was beginning to read Lori's, and then Krista jumped in, so I ended up kind of merging the two.
I see.
By the way, you'll be on camera for the rest of the old who people will be seeing on the webinar for the rest of the thing, which thank goodness was on you and not on me.
Maybe I should show my boobs.
We always enjoy that.
Yeah.
So Lori actually is going into, she's just making a statement about praying for guidance and praying for the girlfriends, and I think that's very, very beautiful. I also think it's interesting that Lori states that she's very Christian. And I really appreciate that's a nice one, because sometimes there's the idea that, oh my God.
Wah! We're back.